Good. Happy new day and welcome to Head to Toe Healing Live. Head to Toe Healing is a modality that Dr. Reese has created where he looks at three aspects of the body: the nutritional aspect, the musculoskeletal system. A migraine, how can nutrition help either alleviate it or maybe even prevent it?
Well, from the nutritional perspective, migraines and headaches in general are almost always caused by food allergy, a food intolerance. And usually it's one of the obvious ones, right? We get people off the poor four and we expect migraines to just go away. It might not be immediate. You might just have them less and less. Maybe you got three each week prior, and then, a few weeks in, it's only one a week, and then maybe you get one a month later. They don't usually just disappear outright, but so the pour four is usually enough, especially the gluten, get enough of the gluten. But it's always possible that there's some other food sensitivity, especially if somebody's guts are messed up, they have a digestion problem. They could be reacting to literally any food. And even if the guts are working properly, there could always be some food intolerance that it's just not on our normal list. Dairy is very common, soy, uh, peanuts, strawberries, all kinds of things that you wouldn't expect, and some of them are even categorically good foods, yet the person is sensitive to them. So yeah, most of the time, merely fixing the digestion, which sometimes is easier said than done, but still, and getting rid of any offending foods. And if they're still happening, usually that's enough. But if they're still happening, we would do an elimination diet to really figure out which food it is causing the problem. And the first suspects would be their favorite foods.
That's interesting. I'm glad you shared that. I had no idea that the most common reason why that happens is allergies. So with an elimination diet, do people just write down like a food journal of what they're eating every day to see when they have reactions?
Yeah, and the food journal shouldn't just contain food. It should contain everything that goes in your mouth, right? All drinks. Drinks are a huge suspect too, right? People say I'm off the bad poor four foods, but they go to Starbucks every morning and get some, caramel syrup fancy drink, and those syrups are fake food, right? That could easily be the trigger. It has been for many people actually. Those drink syrups, not just in coffees, but any of these on-the-go things. The big gulps from 7-Eleven. Like obviously, if you think about it, those are bad. But a lot of people, when they're putting together they're telling us what they eat or they're putting together their food diary, they forget drinks. And drinks in America are a major, major source of problematic ingredients that or they're not even food ingredients. They're chemical additives, either food dyes or color or flavors.
Thank you for that. Actually, we had one comment in the Facebook group. Rebecca's saying she can't hear. I wonder if there's any sort of changes you could make with your mic, Ryan.
Yeah, you
In the
guys.
meat, go ahead.
How does that sound?
Oh, that's a little better.
Yeah, just
Absolutely.
switch the microphone.
Okay, perfect. And let's pop over to Coach Sean. Sean, when people have migraines, is there anything in the posture realm of things that can help them support their body a little bit better to get some relief while it's occurring?
Well, yeah, it's all sourced in two types of major dysfunctions. One being what we call cervical flexion, or short for forward head, tech neck, things where your head is essentially falling out onto your chest. And so we would need to reset that. And it's not that there's the issue in the neck, that could be the site of the problem, but never the source. And so we would work on realigning the whole body because anytime you have like a kink in the hose, uh, anywhere, mentioning the second notable source would be thoracic flexion. And so a hump back, anytime you're creating those kinks in the hose, it blocks the flow of oxygen up to your head. And so that could be a major source of why you would be having a migraine or headache. You're just not getting enough oxygen or nutrients up to the head, or it's creating an acidic environment, a toxic environment in your head because you're not able to drain the lymphatic fluid from your head properly. And so that would be the source, but how you address it can very based on the person. Posture, it tends to be a difficult approach because we always say like site of the pain is never actually the source. And so we have to just work on realigning the body because the source can come from multiple different places. Like from person to person, everybody has a different routine that they do every day. And oftentimes it's even amazing because some people would switch jobs, just them switching jobs, they'll take on a whole new set of different symptoms. And so I'd say that we can address it, but it really would depend on the person and basically uh, how their posture is affecting their health. Um, that's just the best way to put it. But ultimately, this is something, it's as easy as just setting the body back to homeostasis, back to a neutral. That's what we do.
Thank you for that. Now, one thing you mentioned in your response was you need to reset that. Kind of made me think of chiropractic care, but posture alignment therapy is a lot different than chiropractic care. Could
Mm.
you explain the difference between the two, please?
Yeah. Well, you can do it by just having your finger and bending your finger in the opposite direction to where it's going against, you feel a stretch, and then letting go. That's not your bone moving or snapping your finger back into place. That's your muscles. And so we always say the muscles move the bones. The difference between chiropractic is that they would shift your bones around expecting it to stay there. But if your muscles move your bones, or we say your muscles bully your bones, then how can you expect to move something against your muscles and for it to stay there? It's going to eventually snap right back into place because that's what your body's used to. You're moving in the function that your body is used to. And so, in order to actually have long-term substantial changes in your posture, you need to strengthen and utilize and fix that muscle memory of the muscles in order to actually align the posture correctly. Because the bones are just innocent bystanders. They're just flopping around doing whatever the muscles pull them to do. And so you have to reset the musculo part of the musculoskeletal system.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Coach Gingy wanted to pop over to you. I can only imagine for people that have constant migraines, how helpful or harmful it could be to have their mind interacting with that situation. In regards to migraines, what is your perspective on, I guess, cultivating, nurturing the mind during an episode of a migraine?
Well, there's a lot of things that you can do to support the body, support the mind through a migraine using mindfulness. For example, one of the root causes of headaches is, or migraines and headaches in general, is tension. And as you know, we talk about often here, especially back and forth between me and Coach Sean, if you're holding tension in the body that you're not aware of, that could very easily cause strain around the neck, around the head, and cause headaches. In fact, if you start to get a migraine, I bet you could feel around your neck and your head and feel muscles that are unnecessarily tense. So by doing mindfulness practices that relax you, that calm you down, that have you, your muscles release, a lot of that will at least not have the migraines get worse and continue to progress. Now, like Coach Ryan was saying, there are some nutritional deficiencies that can play a role in migraines too. And as we know, your mindset and your emotional state can deeply impact your digestive system. So if you're chronically coming up with negative thinking, or you're chronically in a bad mood, or you're chronically stressed out or fearful, that can cause your digestive system to malfunction in a way where you don't absorb the nutrients that you are taking in. Dr. Reese and other people say that it's not about what you eat, but it's about what you absorb. And if your digestive system is not working properly, either due to a mindfulness issue or a problematic food or posture or something, then you're not going to absorb all the nutrients. In fact, a couple years ago, I finally got rid of my migraines that I had had for maybe 10 or 15 years. And I got off the problematic foods, the poor four foods, and that helped. But then I was still getting some, and I realized that all I really had to do was relax, and some nutrients that I was taking at the time, halfway through drinking it, they just disappeared. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was a deficiency as well, because mine came from multiple different things. I could be sitting for too long, or I could be dehydrated, or I could be deficient in some mineral or something like that. But when I got all of those in line, my migraines stopped immediately and they never came back. Unless I slack on my program, or unless I sit in a chair and I don't move all day or something like that, they can come back. So for me now at this stage, it's about being mindful of the patterns that cause my migraines, as opposed to just trying to be in reactive mode, trying to solve the pain when it shows up.
That is so true. Actually, for myself, I found Dr. Reese because I was having TMJ issues, upper back, shoulder pain, and migraine headaches. And I never really had migraines much in my adult life until that time when I was really having jaw issues. But once I started working with Dr. Reese and implementing the right nutrition, posture therapy was huge to relieve some of that pressure and strain. And then the mindfulness was so amazing. Because what happens is when our body is stagnant, it's almost like a pond and the water doesn't have the inflow of a brook or something like that coming in to aerate the water. The same for our muscles. If we don't move our muscles, they become stagnant and fixated in a certain position. So motion is lotion for the body. The mindfulness training and the nutrition aid in that recovery process. It's truly amazing. And just, gosh, it was only day 7, like day 70, once I was in his program, I had tremendous relief from all my aches and pains. So I wanted to get back to our topic here a little bit more. It seems like our culture is in a constant state of stress, whether it's watching the news or social media or engaging with other people in relationships. Sometimes it's difficult to escape the stress. So with that, oftentimes that does cause migraine headaches. So Brian, I wanted to pop over to you again on the nutrition side of things. How does stress impact, or how does nutrition help support the body when it's so much under stress?
Well, when your body's under stress, it burns through a lot more nutrients a lot faster, especially the B vitamins. And if you're low on B vitamins, you can get a whole bunch of symptoms, including headaches and migraines, and symptoms that look like dehydration. And of course, dehydration itself can cause headaches as well, and exhaustion, all this stuff. So, the lack of rest in general, whether it's a lack of sleep or just an overstressed person, that can lead to headaches as well. And yeah, you need more nutrients. The more stress you're in, the more nutrients you need, very generally, especially the B vitamins and vitamin C and a bunch of minerals as well.
Well, and you talked about dehydration. Dehydration and hydration means a lot. Well, it means different things to different people. So it's what sort of drinks are better to support the body for better hydration to combat that issue? Because some people might just reach for the Red Bull or another soda drink or carbonated drink or a drink of alcohol. What are the drinks that are recommended to help turn things around?
Well, yeah, mainstream medicine has done us a pretty big disservice because they all say, almost all of them say that any liquid basically counts, right? So you just add up your total liquid. Whereas a lot of the liquids that people are generally drinking out there are, in fact, dehydrating them. And that includes coffee, any of these sugar drinks, even though sugar itself is an electrolyte, still, if you're drinking lots of sugar drinks, it's going to contribute to dehydration. The more sugar you need, the more water you need to balance it. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. So, I mean, I would consider either just water, plain water with some salt in it, because you need salt to process water as well. All of the water-soluble nutrients, you also need them to process water. So that's all the B vitamins, vitamin C, all of the electrolytes, potassium, sodium, chloride, calcium, magnesium. All of those things are needed in conjunction with a proper water intake. And you want to avoid diuretics. I mean, it doesn't mean you never can have a coffee or anything, but again, a lot of people are living off of the coffees and the Red Bulls and other caffeinated drinks, alcohol. These are all things that cause you to lose more water and lose more water soluble nutrients. So you can technically be dehydrated even though you're drinking drinks all day. It's just those are the wrong drinks. So water is the easiest one, making sure it has some salt in it, just a pinch, just enough to taste it. Juices, of course, real juices. I don't mean things you bought from the store. That's junk food. But real actual juices would suffice as well because it's not just water. It's also got lots of water soluble nutrients in it. And what most of us do is we have water and we put our supplements in it that have the B vitamins, the vitamin C, the electrolytes, and a bunch of other, juice derivatives in there. Like it's like freeze dried juices basically that are added to it. So it reconstitutes when you put it in water. That's more ideal, not only just the water intake, but the proper water soluble nutrient intake at the same time.
So to add on to that topic, you were talking about to avoid the diuretics, the alcohol, the coffee sparingly. But a lot of times what's interesting is it seems like when people are having those, then they have another side effect where they may get either diarrhea or constipation, and then they don't understand why that's happening. So are you finding people are able to connect the dots a little bit more once they start the head to toe healing process? Are there any tips that you can provide that will help bridge that gap, Brian?
Well, you're mentioning people who maybe get constipated when they quit coffee or something like that. That means their guts are not working properly to begin with, right? If you need a laxative or a diuretic to function properly, you're not functioning properly in the first place. So yeah, we can turn that around. That's a big part of what we do. We start almost everyone on a digestion protocol for that reason and for other reasons. And yeah, nobody should need coffee or energy drinks. You could have them if you really, really want to, but most people are just addicted to these things and they're just not producing enough energy naturally from the metabolization of nutrients and proper digestion. You should have all the energy you need. You shouldn't need any extra stimulants. And I used to be a coffee junkie myself, right? So I know it's hard to get your head around it, but we've been conditioned to think that we need these energy boosts in the form of caffeine and sugar and alcohol and stuff. And it was never true. If we need that boost, you're not functioning properly to begin with.
So true. I actually was talking to a member the other day, and she was talking about how she noticed when she had more alcohol that her body just didn't function the same. She would have more issues with diarrhea or constipation and continued to have sugar and alcohol cravings because she's still feeding that, I guess, feeding that monster. So it's helpful with the information you're sharing. Thank you so much for that. Gingy, I wanted to pop over to you and see what your perspective on stress with migraines is.
Absolutely. Stress is a big one. And, generally the type of stress that people suffer from is interpersonal stress. So it's not necessarily like, you're out in nature and the weather's bad and that's stressful. It's usually like an expectation you have of somebody else that let you down, or some kind of deadline you have to make with your job, for other people who are relying on you, or your boss is riding you or something like that. So these interpersonal dynamics are what causes us to create stress internally. And we do that, it's almost like a form of a coping mechanism in order to push and elevate ourselves up to the ability to be able to conquer whatever the feat is. So, like, imagine you're in the wilderness and an animal is chasing you. Your whole system is going to amp up and you're going to perform better, more acutely, more strategically in order to evade some predator. Now, that's the same type of system that gets activated when you're late on a project at work and you know your boss is going to yell at you. So that same level of stress gets heightened so that you can evade some potential danger, and that interpersonal conflict is what your nervous system is thinking is the environmental danger. So a good way to mitigate this and to work on this is to take a step back from whatever you think is going on and notice the thoughts you're having about it, notice the emotional responses, and just try some box breathing. Just relax, take some deep breaths, and try to do something that will calm you down to the point where you can engage something in a relaxed state. And it's easier said than done. Sometimes you have to look at an event that happened retrospectively, because in hindsight, you can see all the things that led up to the big experience of stress. And then if you can do that enough times, you'll be able to identify when it's happening next time. So, in essence, as with most all mindfulness things, is it's a practice that you want to implement into your life that on an ongoing basis has you aware of what's going on and able to choose those things intentionally. Because it's not that stress is bad. It's when stress is unintentional and it's just happening to you and it's happening all the time and you have no control over it, that's when it's bad. That's when it has a negative impact on your life. Whereas if you can choose to turn on stress and use it to motivate you through your workday and then turn it off and then relax and be with your family, there's no problem with that. You can choose not to turn it on the next day if you've been too stressed all week. You can choose to go and through your whole workday or whatever today being relaxed. And so you can notice if it's affecting your health. Well, I'm just going to be relaxed for a month and see how that impacts my health. Or I'm about to eat food or take my supplements. I'm going to relax first. These little tricks to control which nervous system you're activating is key and fundamental to managing stress. But you've got to be able to be mindful of what's going on and then choose the actions intentionally. That's the big key.
Thank you for that. We'll pop over to Coach Sean now. Continuing on the same topic of stress, how can posture alignment therapy help individuals relax their body a little bit more so that way it can function better?
Yeah, most people come to our classes to for that very reason to just relax and decompress because a lot of the exercises that we're doing are alleviating that pain or that tension that those larger muscles had to put up with throughout the entire day. And so it's finally allowing those muscles to take a break and the rest of the muscles, the peripheral muscles or the smaller muscles to kind of do their part and wake up. Um, but also it increases that kinesthetic awareness in your body to where you can realize when you're stressed, okay, it's one thing to breathe and, I gotta calm down, I gotta calm down. But I've noticed a lot of people, when we do challenging exercises, sometimes I will say relax this or relax the shoulders or something along those lines. And they're like, wow, I had to actively tell myself or just look throughout my body what was tensed up. Like if the work is in the leg, why is your shoulders tensed up right now? And your whole body should not suffer from just tensing up because you feel some work in your ankles or your leg. And so it's most of the time people don't realize they're tensing up and exacerbating the symptoms of stress because it's just so second nature, it's like a survival mechanism or something. It's subconscious even probably to where they're used to doing that as a child. Or I know a lot of tall people. This is kind of unrelated, but a lot of tall people are used to like hunching over because they're used to like bending down for doors, or they could not be secure with themselves and they just wanted to feel small, but they were so tall that they felt like the center of attention. And so people will do things out of habit like stress and clench and tighten your muscles and then not realize that they didn't turn that off for the rest of the day. If you work a super stressful job, try to take note of where are my shoulders at. Just when you're calming down, just say, where are my shoulders at? Where's my jaw at? Where, like, wherever you're usually tensing, what are my hands doing? This we do that at the beginning of every class and at the end of every class. Just take note of your body and relax, actually. So I think not enough people know about kinesthetic awareness or utilize it to help them actually relax during the day or at night or when they need to.
That's such a good point. And actually, when I participate in the classes that you host for us, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Because I walk into the class and it could be the morning or it could be the evening, doesn't matter which one. But my muscles are typically tensed up. By the end of the class, I'm relaxed. I feel like I had a breath of fresh air. I can breathe easier. My expansion of my lungs is better. It's truly amazing. So thank you for that.
Mm, yeah.
We did have a question here from Mary. Mary says, what happens if I already had hips and knees replaced? Is there any hope for someone like me?
Of course, it's the problem is still there, is still there. You just change the part. It's kind of like if there was a issue with your brakes and it constantly wears down for some reason, then changing the brakes won't fix the actual issue. It would be like fixing whatever mechanism is false that's causing the brakes to always crunch down or something like that, activate. And so, yes, it's completely possible. There are some things that you have to give up. Like you probably won't get full mobility like you had with the bones or the muscles, but it's always going to spread. When you get any type of surgery in your body, the problem hasn't dissipated. You're not fixing the problem by changing out the joint. It will travel somewhere else. Like that's why it goes from one hip to the other hip, and then it probably goes to the lower back, and then it probably goes to the neck or something like that. It'll always spread because the issue wasn't actually addressed. Just like I said when in the beginning, saying that the muscles move the bones. And so if the muscles move the bones and you're not fixing the muscular issue, then no matter how many bones you switch out, it's always going to recur or it's going to happen somewhere else. Um, it just, you just have to fix the problem at the end of the day. So, yes, to answer your question, yes, it's absolutely can be addressed. Um, yeah, that's not the problem at all.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so amazing because we see people all the time come into our membership that have had replacements, shoulders, knees, hips, all of that, and they can't believe the mobility increase that occurs after doing posture alignment therapy and the other work that we do in the membership. I wanted to follow up with somebody that's in the chat. Veronica says, please help me, Dr. Reese. Well, Veronica, the first thing you need to do, if you haven't already, is get yourself a copy of Medical Monopoly and a copy of Head to Toe Healing. Those two books are the place to start. If you go to drkevinreese.com, there's a tab on our website that says books, and you can get more information about what we do with head to toe healing if it's something that you're trying to overcome, whether it be chronic pain, migraines, other aches and pains, or you're trying to live life without dependency on medications. A lot of times people come to us and their symptoms start just dropping away, which is great. And that means they're starting to feel better. So the first place to start is go to drkevinreese.com. There's educational videos there. There's testimonials there and access to the books. And then once you have a little more information as far as a foundation, reach out to us. We're open to having a phone call with you or a Zoom call with you to talk to you about your chronic issues and what you're trying to overcome. Those calls are free, and we would love to hear from you or anybody else that's listening right now. But let's get back to some of our questions. This one I'm going to direct at Ryan. Teresa's asking, how can I get rid of an ovarian cyst naturally?
Cysts anywhere in the body is a metabolic problem. So it's not just one thing that you would do. We would get you off all the bad foods. We would do a digestion protocol, almost certainly, for the first month, and then get you on all 90 essential nutrients and see what the rest of your symptoms are, because cysts never happen just by themselves. There's always some other symptoms going on. And basically, it would be those symptoms that we would focus on, whether it was sleep or body weight, energy, skin, arthritis, pain, whatever it is. We know that by fixing all those things and by boosting the metabolism in general, that cysts are most likely to just go away. So we don't have a specific cyst protocol, although there are some specific things that we could add, such as high doses of iodine on top of the 90 essential nutrients to help speed that up. But it is 100% reversible, no matter where they are in the body, whether it's on the outside or the inside. They are reversible. It's a sign of a metabolic problem. So are a bunch of other growths like skin tags and stuff like that. It's all metabolic.
Thank you for that. Another question for you, Ryan. How to balance gut bacteria? Is there anything you could share on that topic, please?
Well, yeah, the first step is to stop messing it up with bad foods. And I know a lot of the audience here already will be eating relatively clean. But as we said earlier with the food allergies, it might be a little bit more complicated than that, especially in persisting cases of SIBO and stuff like that. We might have to do a full-blown food diary, change things up for a while, do something maybe extreme like a fruit fast for a while where you eat only fruit. And obviously, of course, we use probiotics, we use enzymes and stuff too. But most people come to us asking those questions and have already tried a bunch of different probiotics and everything like that and fermented foods. And a lot of them have actually gone to quite extreme lengths with their food choices to try and fix it. So I think we can approach it much simpler than a lot of other people on the internet suggest, again, with a bunch of fancy exotic foods and fermenting stuff yourself and all that. It's usually not necessary, but we do have to find if there is any problematic foods in there and do a proper digestion protocol. Make sure they truly are off the bad foods, because a lot of people go to so-called healthy eating and they're still eating some kinds of grains and stuff like that. All that can keep messing up the bacteria. Most likely won't need to be that restricted for long, but chances are we will need to do some kind of strategic, very restricted diet for a short period of time. And we'd still use the probiotics and stuff. It's just that probiotics don't usually work on their own when in cases of persistent SIBO.
Thank you for that. I'm going to transfer over to Coach Sean again. We have a comment here from Jenny. Jenny says, it's funny that you guys are talking about relaxing other parts of the body when they're working out. Could you explain that a little bit more, Coach Sean, about posture alignment therapy and how we can work out our body at the same time while we're relaxing it?
And nothing much to it. It's all about just gaining that kinesthetic awareness. And when you're working something, you're bringing all the awareness to that area, making sure you're doing it properly. And everywhere else, you can consciously just relax it and just scan your body. You can do two things at the same time. You can do a workout, and in the rest of the body, just kind of scan through and see what areas are tense. And if they're tense, you just relax them, just drop them. Um, and it's easier said. Oh, it's really in this situation, it's easier done than I can explain it. Um, but this is something that you can start to practice in your daily routine with whatever you're doing. You could be sweeping the floor, and if the work is in your arms, then see if other areas are being impacted. Um, there's many, many examples, any type of exercise that you're doing. Uh, Even like, let's say you're driving in a car and kind of notice, are your shoulders tensed up? Is your hips, what is your legs doing? Just find time in the day to kind of scan through your body. Do it multiple times. You should probably do it like more than 20 different times during your day. And it's a quick scan. It takes like 30 seconds. But just check in with your body and see what you're accidentally tensing up, because you're working, and working would be probably the biggest situation. You're writing something down or you're typing something. Why are your shoulders tensed up? You know, or why are you grinding your jaw? Things like that.
Thank you for that. What I really love about posture alignment therapy, it's gentle, easy movements that anybody can do from like age 2 to 100.
Hmm.
So they're very effective and relaxing at the same time. It's amazing. You're strengthening while you're relaxing, which seems counterintuitive. And then I wanted to just mention here, Jenny had a comment. She said, as a personal trainer, I also see my clients how tense they get their muscles. And you are right. People really don't know the difference, and they're destroying their bodies when they're doing that, when they are really intense. So it's being connected to your body, being aware, so that way you can treat it the proper way to heal.
Yeah. Yeah. That was actually a big thing for me. When I started to do weight training, uh, at one point, any weight that I lifted, I would immediately get an intense pain in the back of my neck. It could be like the minute it started to get heavy, and it wasn't really that heavy, but the minute I started to do anything, any type of workout, I would get an immediate, like, debilitating pain in the back of my neck. And I would kind of just wonder what it was. I went to get a massage, nothing worked. And then I finally just relaxed and pushed the weight. And finally found out that when I was doing the workout, I was tensing up my shoulders. When it got really hard, I would tense up my shoulders and squeeze my neck area. And that was what was causing the issue. Ever since I corrected that, that never recurred. So, um, yeah, I agree with her completely.
What was surprising to me with posture alignment therapy was the fact that if you have a shoulder hike or a hip hike or pelvis that's tilted or twisted or a hump starting on the top of your back, which I'm guilty of all of those. I had all of those when I found Dr. Reese 2.5 to 3 years ago. When you're strengthening your body with weight training, you're actually strengthening that dysfunction. So it's so critical to get the body back in alignment so it can function and flow properly before you strengthen.
Good point.
Let's see, we've got quite a few more questions here. This one's directed at Coach Ryan. Carrie's asking, do you have any high blood pressure solutions?
Almost every single member that we have came to us with high blood pressure. It's one of the most common things. And that's also in the metabolic category. Blood sugar, blood pressure, blood cholesterol, obesity, energy, a lot of things are lumped into the metabolic category. So yeah, once again, anything metabolic, if I use the word metabolic, that means systemic. It means it's not one specific problem in one little part of the body. It's not one specific nutrient deficiency. It's system-wide. There's probably going to be multiple nutrient deficiencies. Usually there is food intolerances and digestion problems. Almost always that precedes the metabolic problem. Or people can mess their metabolism up by years of dieting and fix some things, but other problems remain, like blood pressure. There are many minerals that you need for all of your muscles, and blood pressure is essentially a muscle problem. The same thing, lots of vitamins can impact blood pressure as well. So there's no way we can say, oh yeah, just make sure to take your calcium and magnesium and your B vitamins and you'll be fine. It just doesn't work like that. And once again, we would look at your other symptoms that are more controllable outright, like sleep and skin and digestion and stuff like that. Make sure all those are working correctly. And we're going to use all 90 essential nutrients anyways. But if the digestion system isn't working correctly, then it's not going to work. So once again, we'd have to look at the individual person, because this is one of the most common things. And it almost always comes with 4, 5, 6, 10 other symptoms, right? And it's those other symptoms that we can target more specifically. And the blood pressure usually does fall in line with that. Some people get lucky and the blood pressure starts to improve right away just on the 90 essential nutrients. But given how common the digestion problems are, I wouldn't want you to expect that. I would expect, not knowing anything about you, that you come in with a digestion problem. Whether you recognize it or not, digestion/absorption problem, we'd work on that first, get you on the 90 essential nutrients. Of course, you'd be doing the posture alignment therapy and the mindfulness training at the same time. Of course, Sean could attest, and Gingy as well. Both posture and mindset can screw with your blood pressure, right? Your posture is how your nerves are set. Your nerve function obviously has a lot to do with blood pressure. Of course, stress can go up Stress can cause blood pressure to go up immediately. So everything we said about stress before is in here as well. And there's quite a lot of people who, maybe don't even have a nutritional problem. People try real hard to keep their nutrition good. And even with just basic level decent nutrition, it should be fine. But yet they're chronically stressed about everything. Their three kids and their 7 grandkids and their stubborn husband and their 93-year-old mom. And they're worried about all these people at once and their finances and all this stuff. I mean, it's constant for them. So this is one of the reasons why the mindfulness training is so important, because nutrition can do a lot, but your mind can ruin it, especially in the case of blood pressure. You could be doing all the proper nutrition and it's your mind that's causing the chronic stress in the body, which one of the manifestations of that is going to be elevated blood pressure.
Thank you for that, Ryan. One other question for you from Dawn. She says, how to fix an Achilles tendon?
As long as it's in place. Okay, any tendon, any bit of connective tissue, any joint can be repaired, unless the tendon it's moved, right? It's snapped away or something. And that's why in some cases they do need to do surgery where they pull it back into place and like staple it into place. As long as it's in place, it can heal. But sometimes nutrition's not magic in that sense, right? It can't pull your tendon from elsewhere and put it into place. So just saying, just like nutrition won't straighten you out, right? Nutrition can stop scoliosis, but it can't straighten you out. That's where the posture therapy comes in. So we can't guarantee that a joint is going to be regrown if it's not in place. If it is, you have a near 100% chance of doing it. You need lots of nutrients to do it, all 90 essential nutrients. And we go extra heavy on the sulfur compounds and vitamin C and some other nutrients that are directly involved with connective tissue. It's a long process. It will take several months, but it is doable. And that goes for hernias too, and other injuries, rotator cuffs and stuff like that.
Thank you for that. Marilita's asking, Ryan, I was told by my PCP as a result of an ultrasound that I have a benign lymphomina. Is there a way that hydration will resolve that? Actually, it's lymphoma.
Benign lymphoma?
Correct.
Okay, well, you hear the word lymphoma, I would take that extremely seriously. I don't care if the doctor said it was benign or not. I would act as if it's not benign. And once again, we would be using all 90 essential nutrients, the posture, the mindfulness, everything. And in this case, we could throw a heavy hammer at it, meaning we could use a lot more products than normal. Not only just covering the 90 essential nutrients, but massive doses of antioxidants and even some herbal products and stuff. Once again, a multi-month process of cleansing the system. In this case, long-term fasting, some hardcore fasting would probably be part of the protocol as well. Again, just allowing the body to clear all the junk out throughout the whole body, including the lymphatic system. But I would take that extremely seriously. And there's a long list of other things that could be done. Basically, anything that is on the table, if somebody had the sea monster, would be on the table for you. Like I said, I would act as if that's what's going on. We do have some people who they don't know for sure whether it's benign or not. They don't want to get the biopsies and stuff. So we just act as if it's not benign.
Thank you
Any
for that.
problem in the lymph, you should take that very seriously. Any lymph swelling or anything, we'll use the heavy hammer for that.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I had a conversation with somebody today that reached out to us for that free phone call, and she's had issues with her lymph node, and she has a swollen goiter as well. So would it be the same sort of approach for her?
Yeah. I mean, once again, we're in the program. Some people have lots of resources and some people don't, right? So we're going to work with you, whatever is possible. We're going to, again, for budgetary reasons, because some of the things when you're talking about sea monster, you might want to go to a clinic and do certain things that we can't do, right? Then this is budget permitting type of things, time, location, all this stuff. So we'd work with the individual person, see what they're capable of and what they're willing to do. And some of that would be from us, from nutrition, and some of it might not be. Some of it might be a recommendation to go and get your root canals removed or something like that, right? Again, depending on what's going on with them, depending on budget, time, location, their level of commitment, all that stuff. We would come up with a program that we could do the most possible to support the body given the circumstances.
Thank you for that. I'm going to pop over to Coach Sean this time. We have somebody asking here. Trey is saying, what can I do for painful knees, back, shoulder, and hips, please?
Realign. That's really all I can go into, because your pain doesn't tell you or doesn't tell me enough to actually address the issue. In fact, anybody that puts a name to any type of posture dysfunction, spinal stenosis, tendonitis, whatever, um, just throw that name out. It's like getting your receipt, going to a restaurant, getting your receipt instead of the actual meal. It's not going to do anything for us. What we actually have to do, and what I brought up in the beginning, was that the site of the pain is very rarely ever the source. And so we have to actually focus on the source. Where is that coming from? Because all of these pains is just the result. It's never gonna actually come from that area. And that's just how posture works. The pain is always the base, it's always the result. Just like the disease is never actually the root cause, it's the result, it's the manifestation of all of the symptoms coming together. And so it's hard to answer questions like that, because it's we don't have like, hey, here's your knee protocol and you got a couple of knee exercises like you're in physical therapy. It doesn't work like that. And there's a reason why physical therapy isn't fully effective, because it's not focusing on the source. It's focusing on where you say the pain is. And so you can't actually fix that by just addressing where you feel the pain, because something above or below is causing that pain.
Coach Ryan, with pain in several joints in the body, which I know you've had experience with pain in the body, what would your nutritional perspective be on this?
Yeah, well, I grew up in pain. I was born with childhood arthritis and dislocated hips and had all kinds of twitches and cramps and just chronic pain in general, pulling muscles all the time and stuff like that. And in my cases, it was just straightforward nutrient deficiency. In my case, my lifelong pain that I'd had for 25 years, it was gone in less than a week on the proper dose of the 90 essential nutrients. I have seen quite a few cases where that was the case. It was just chronic, widespread nutrient deficiency, especially in the minerals, because you need these minerals not just for your bones and joints, but for your muscles as well. The pain could be coming from any one of those. Protein deficiency is also possible. It does happen because your bones and joints are partly made of protein as well. I mean, collagen it's a protein, right? So it could be a digestion problem that's causing that. It could be dieting that's causing that. The digestion problem is more likely, but either way, it can also be a food. Right? Food intolerances can cause inflammation. That inflammation can be anywhere in the body. Arthritis just means inflammation in the joints. And that joint inflammation can absolutely come from foods. It can come from gluten. It can come from dairy. It could come from anything that you're sensitive to, even if it's not on our normal list. Once again, things like strawberries, bananas, chicken, you name it. There are people out there who are so sensitive to some of those foods that it can cause inflammation anywhere and everywhere in the body. So we would start with the basics. We'd get them off the poor four. Dairy would be the next most likely suspect that we would try if we don't see an initial response. We could get them off of all grains as well, even including rice. Just strip out the grains completely. And I'm talking about if they don't get an initial response. When it comes to chronic pain or pain in general, I'm really looking for fast results. Maybe not 100%, but within a month or two, I want them to see at least some improvement. And if they don't, we're going to start digging in to these foods and seeing what other sources of inflammation could there be, because it could be a food. It could be EMF, which I know we don't have time to go into, but I've seen many, many cases in the arthritis category where they didn't get better until we addressed the EMF. And that's a growing problem. So that's just another case where you could eat all the right stuff and take all the right nutrients. But if you are exposed to EMF, which you're watching us on Facebook, you're exposed. Your house has Wi-Fi in it, almost certainly. Your neighbors do, all this stuff. And it's just increasing, and it's going to increase more. In many cases, that needs to be addressed, or the nutrition itself is not going to work.
Thank you for that. I want to pass the baton over to Coach Gingy on this topic of pain and joints. And I would imagine the mind has a lot to do with that too. And sometimes it plays tricks on us. How would you approach the topic of pain and joints from a mindfulness viewpoint?
Well, actually, I wanted to go back and kind of piggyback on what something Sean said maybe a couple weeks ago, and that he alluded to just now. With with pain all over, I would assume that there's a level of tension being held. And something Sean said is when he was lifting something heavy, he noticed that his shoulders would hike up. And this is a phenomena that's not just physical while you're working out. It could be like what Sean was saying a few weeks ago. He was like, you see people walking around and it's like they're in this position all the time where they're holding something heavy in their hands. And I'm like, they're carrying a psychological weight. They're carrying an emotional weight. They're carrying something else that has their body responding as if they're holding something heavy. So the first thing I would do is I would ask, what are you holding on to? What are you carrying? What is the emotional or mental or some type of burden that you're bearing right now? And then, how many people are walking through their lives, tensed up like this just because of that burden? How many people are tensed up in the body and they don't even realize it? How many people are compensating by flexing a different muscle when they think it's helping? Like Sean's shoulder hike isn't actually helping him lift the weight. I notice this when I'm doing curls or something. If I'm doing a curl, I'll notice that this shoulder is higher than this one while I'm doing the curl. Like for some reason, having my shoulder up is going to help me do the curl, but when I drop it down, well, then the bicep actually gets to work. If I flex my wrist back like this, well, then the bicep gets even more work and it doesn't use other muscles to compensate. And this is what we do as human beings. We lean on different auxiliary things to compensate and try to aid us in whatever the goal is. And so if you're finding that you're tensing up or you're overthinking or you're looking at all the negatives in front of you, those are all different ways to compensate and to redirect the attention or to try to to recruit extra things into your life to help you solve a problem. And it very well could be you're overthinking, or you're overstressing, or you're overflexing, or you're holding on to something psychologically that's just too much of a weight for you to bear. And if you let go of that, like for example, overwhelm is a chronic or is a common causative factor for stress. You're overwhelmed, therefore you are stressed. And overwhelm comes from overactivity in the mind. Your imagination is running away with itself. You're trying to hold this to-do list and this conversation and this, deadline and this issue and this fear. You're holding all of it up here, and it's such a weight that your mind is just kind of constantly on go. It's like you have too many things on the back burner. Whereas if you were to say, okay, I'm going to write this to-do list down and put a sticky note on my computer for tomorrow, you don't no longer have to hold it up here. It's out. You can have that conversation or text that person and say, can I talk to you next week? Yeah, boom, rescheduled. Great. And as you can reduce the psychological stress, your emotional stress will also decrease and it will free you up to be able to focus on other things. This is the same way as in dropping your shoulder so that you can properly do the workout. What you're trying to do is less, which is what I'm finding more and more people are having issues with, is they're trying to fight like, how do I relax? Well, you just let it go. You don't have to do more to relax, you have to do less to relax. Well, how do I forgive somebody? You just let go. You stop holding on to the judgments and the burdens. You just relax and you let it go. You accept, you let it flow. These are the things that, people get so stuck in trying to do things. And I know I'm a little bit of a rant here, but it's this overcompensation that I think causes most of the stress and most of the issues that people are dealing with.
It's almost like they don't know how to stop the cycle.
Exactly.
It's like they're in high fight or flight, high cortisol constantly, and that's a normal to them. And for them to be calm, that's abnormal. So they feel like they have to be busy. We found that sometimes with some of our members where they're coming to a plateau and they're having a difficult time healing and reversing their symptoms. And a lot of times it's because they're doing too much and they need to know, they need to learn to step back.
Yeah, and there's usually a fear there. Like, well, if I don't stay on top of this, well, then something bad will happen. But in reality, staying on top of it is the bad thing that's getting in the way of them actually achieving their goal. It's like ask any artist. What happens if you try to just push through and just make as much art as possible? Your art quality goes down and down and down and down. You have to take a break. You have to relax a little bit, and you come back to it, and all of a sudden the art flows in magnitudes of, order. It's amazing. So it's the same thing for everybody in pretty much every situation. There's a certain ceiling. There's what they call diminishing returns. You don't want to go beyond the point where your returns start to diminish so far to the point where your returns go to zero. Now you're hitting that glass ceiling. Now you're not able to make any real progress. You gotta do less in order to do more. And that it's so counterintuitive, but it's really the thing that most people are struggling with. I can't tell you how many people right now I'm having conversations with that they're just like, I need to do this, I need to do this. And I'm like, what happens if you don't?
Hmm. And sometimes they just need to look in the mirror and realize they're looking at the issue, that they need to just kind of pull back and let it be, like you were talking about. We'll take just a couple more questions and we'll need to wrap up for the day. So, Ryan, this is a question for you. It says, do you have any idea why my hands are itchy and tingling whenever I touch cold water or if I go outside and it's cold? Is there anything I can do for this?
I'm not aware of a specific deficiency that would cause that. So I would just use all 90 essential nutrients, clean up the digestion as always. Often the itchiness is a very common problem, actually. Often it is just a digestion problem or a food intolerance. I know it's a recurring theme today, but it's true. I mean, there's only, from the nutritional perspective, there's only a few major things that could be going wrong. Could be digestion, could be food allergy, could be nutrient deficiency, and maybe some more obscure possibilities, but those are the main ones. And when it comes to itching in general, sensitive skin, any skin problem at all, first assumption is a digestion problem or a food intolerance. And of course, when we get people off the bad foods, usually that starts to improve right away. And even the food intolerances themselves, that could just be due to the digestion problem itself. It could be due to a thyroid problem as well, where people with a thyroid problem tend to have a lot of different sensitivities to a bunch of different foods, and those tend to go away once we fix the thyroid problem. But yeah, step one, get off the bad foods, fix the digestion problem. And once again, I'd have to look at their other symptoms to see, what we would focus on more with the nutrition, but definitely we would cover the baseline. I would probably be adding extra selenium if there wasn't any other obvious clues, other symptoms that would, again, allow us to say, okay, well, clearly it's in the blood sugar category or in the thyroid category or whatever. If we don't have any more information, the 90 itself should work, usually does, assuming that we fix the digestion first.
So you brought up a key word again, and we talk about it, it seems like every week, but the bad foods. Would you, in case there's new people watching us for the first time today, would you please cover what those bad foods are and why they're so important to eliminate from a diet?
Yeah, the basic list, the core four, is gluten, oil, fried, and fake. Fake seems pretty self-explanatory. Fake foods harm us. They cause damage in the body, cause inflammation in the body. Excuse me. Gluten, very similarly, also causes inflammation and damage, especially in the intestines, which is where nutrients are absorbed. So it's the last place that you want to screw up. But glutens and grains in general, but gluten specifically, are the worst offenders for damaging the intestines. So they're top priority to get rid of with any of these problems that we've discussed today. And the oil in the fried food, fried food, most people know it's bad. They just don't really understand why. It's because that oil is oxidized because it's used high temperature in the deep fryer. And so it burns it, basically. Any oil will oxidize with enough time, heat, light, and air exposure. And of course, deep fried just rapidly accelerates that. But oils in any of these packaged foods products and salad dressings and cooking oils, all that stuff is almost certainly going to be oxidized, especially if you're in America. By the time it even hits the shelf in the grocery store, it's probably oxidized. So we want to get rid of that because that causes inflammation in the body as well. So the main goal is to stop damage from the body, and those core four foods would be the top sources for the average person.
Thank you for covering that. We really appreciate it. Susan has a question about Raynaud's syndrome. She says, the cold winter is coming around the corner. Please help. I always seem to need socks and gloves. Is there anything that can be done for Raynaud's, or any insights you can provide, Ryan?
Yeah, Raynaud's is basically a circulation problem. And one of the main things that I like to do with people is get them to take their basal temperature, armpit temperature when they first wake up, to establish what their baseline is, because most people are actually low. Even people who sweat a lot and they run hot, their basal temperature is often very low. The basal temperature is it's a proxy signal of basal metabolic rate, right? Your overall metabolic rate. Most people, especially if they have a disease, most people tilt towards low metabolism, slow metabolism. We want to increase it. That'd be the main goal, one of the main goals for almost every single member, because that's one of the key metrics of the metabolism, as I just explained, right? So we said earlier, almost everyone that comes in has a metabolic problem. That's the main category problem that we attract. And it's very just widespread and common. So we'd be taking more than just your temperature as a basic metabolic measure. And we would expect to see all those things go up as we fix the digestion, use all 90 essential nutrients. I would definitely be adding a few extras, especially selenium and iodine, to bring it up. And in the case of Raynaud's, it's niacin that I'd be using a big dose of niacin. Niacin is well known to force circulation. That's why it causes a flush. They call it a niacin flush, where you get, red face and kind of or itchy, rashy kind of skin. You feel flush. You feel like your blood is rushing everywhere. And that's one of the problems in Raynaud, is that the blood is not circulating properly, right? So the niacin can force the circulation by itself. Even it's one of the few nutrients that can have an awesome effect even by itself. Even this person listening, you could go out and buy a niacin. I recommend the nicotinic acid version, which is true niacin, which will or should give you a flush. And if you're low on it, you should actually get a more severe flush. The other forms, the non-flush or the slow release, they're not going to give us that signal. You actually want the flush to be able to know if you're low or not, and to determine how much more we're going to use or less we're going to use. I would caution you that with niacin, if you are very metabolically unhealthy, the flush could be very, very severe, meaning it could be as bad as hives, could look like hives. It's not a true allergic reaction, but it can look like it. And in the worst case scenarios, people can pass out, especially on their first time. So I would caution anyone who's trying niacin. I do recommend it if you have niacin. It may even offer immediate relief. I didn't say immediate cure, but some immediate relief where you're saying, wow, I'm feeling my fingers like I haven't felt them in 15 years. That might happen within an hour of taking the niacin. But if you're doing it for the first time, anybody listening, I would recommend sitting down for an hour or two after, just in case you pass out. It can happen. The dose I usually start with is 500 milligrams. If the flush is too severe, we'll cut that in half. We break the tablet in half. And the flush should get less severe as time goes on. As you absorb more of it, as you top up on it, the flush becomes less and less severe, which is also another reason to use the flush version so that we can track the progress here. And the niacin would be the only one that I would recommend that you go out and actually just get right now. Everything else, you can't just go out and buy the 90 essential nutrients not effectively. The company that we use is the only one that puts them all into, 2, 3, 4 products instead of 15, 20, 30, right? We get a lot of members who come in and they're on 40 different products. That doesn't make sense. It's not cost effective. And usually you're still way short of the 90. So we use our products for that. But the niacin you can get on the open market, and the niacin should help a lot.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for that valuable information, and also Coach Gingy and Sean. It's been a wonderful show. And we wanted to leave you with some information, valuable information. So if you're curious about head to toe healing and how to get your body in a position where it can start healing itself, the first thing to do would be to go to drkevinreese.com, click on the book tab. You're going to look for Medical Monopoly and Head to Toe Healing. Those are the best 2 books to start with to give you an overview, foundation of what head to toe healing is about, and whether or not it resonates with you. If it does, take time, schedule a meeting with us. We would be happy to talk to you about your specific chronic issues or pain that you're going through that you're trying to reverse. And that's the best place to start. So we'll see you next week, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday for the next Head to Toe Healing Live. Have a great rest of your day and week.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay healthy, everybody.